Hey there, this is Talanova. I am excited to be working on my very first tier list. It'll be over all the mini bosses in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. I just recently finished my last mini boss of the game and was excited to see how they kind of rank against each other in terms of difficulty. Let's get started. Okay, first we have the Armored Warrior. Now this guy, we actually didn't have to give him vitality damage, so you had to specifically focus on the posture bar. I thought it was a good fight. I'm just not thinking it was too difficulty. I think I actually beat him on my first try. If not, it was like my second try. So I'll put him on B for now. Alright, next we have the Ashina Elite. Now this guy, hear me out, he was extremely easy. He only really used one moveset, and I was able to parry him pretty fast, so I'm just going to put him on F. So next we have the reskin of the first Ashina Elite. This one was a little bit more difficult, but it wasn't like that hard. It just had a little bit more vitality and posture that we had to give it to be able to break him down. The next one, the Blazing Bull, that one gave me a lot of like difficulty my first playthrough. I'm gonna put him about the same as Armored Warrior. I think he was a little bit easier, so we'll put him there. Next, we have the Generals. Now these guys were pretty easy as well, considering the more difficult ones that we have down the road. I remember being able to get a lot of the death blows, the stealth death blows, so we're gonna put him on C. Yeah, we'll do that. The Headless ones, they were challenging for me, I thought. I would have to put the underwater ones just to be a little bit harder than the on-ground ones. We're gonna put this one here for sure, and then the on-land ones, I would say here? That looks about right. Alright, so next we have the tutorial boss. I thought this one was pretty easy as well. Didn't have any difficulty trying to defeat him. This was at the very beginning of the game, so obviously they're going to take it light on you. The next one, we have the first Lone Shadow Longswordsman that you fight. I would say I took about 5 tries on getting this one done. He would probably go a little bit better than the General, for sure, 100%. The next one, I think it's Masanaga, not 100% sure on how to say it. This one was definitely a little bit harder. I would have to say that I had more trouble fighting him than I did the Headless, so we're going to put him on A. Next one, Vile Hand. It's honestly just a reskin of the Masanaga one. I had a little bit more issue with the first one just because, you know, by the time I did the second one, I had more training. So I would say I would probably put him right there as well. So the next, we have the Centipedes. There are actually 2 in this game. Once you get their attack pattern down, extremely easy to get through. So I wouldn't even say these are challenges on subsequent runs. For a first playthrough, it might be a little bit more difficult. For me though, I would say he was a little bit easier than the Bull, but definitely harder than the first Swordsman. Yeah, we'll save that for now. Alright, so next we have the Miss Noble. Now this one, I would have to say is the easiest boss fight for sure. He's too slow to give you any attacks. He doesn't have much defense, you just gotta keep wailing on him until you kill him. The only difficulty this mini-boss gives you are the apparitions that appear outside of where he is, which come in the form of many smaller enemies in the game, so I wouldn't even say this is a problem. So next we have the Okami leader. I would have to say that Shitsu was one of the easier ones to fight for sure. The only difficulty this one gave you is anytime you were to jump in the lake before you actually killed her, she would send lightning bolts from extremely far, from basically the entire length of the landscape that she's on in Fountainhead Palace. So for that reason, I would put her on par with the second Ashina Elite. I think that's good. Next we have Orin of the Water. This one was an interesting mini-boss. I thought it was a nice change of pace compared to the other ones. Other people seem to have a lot more difficulty. I killed her on my first try. I enjoyed this one. Probably, I don't think it's my favorite mini-boss in the game, but it's definitely up there. I would have to rank her difficulty as being just a little bit above the Generals. Alright, so next we have the Sekiro Bull. So this is a reskin of the Blazing Bull that we have here. And since it appears later in the game, I would have to say it's a bit easier. I would have to put the Blazing Bull right after Orin. Alright, so next we have the 7 Ashina Spears. I think this one gave me the most trouble in my playthrough, as before this point I was just dodging a lot. I wasn't really parrying. I didn't get the whole parry mechanic. To be good at this game, you have to get that down. So this one taught me how to play this game much better, and it prepared me for all the boss fights afterwards. So I would have to say it's S tier only because I died probably 30 plus times. It was an enjoyable fight. Once I got it done, I felt so I just felt so good. I just felt so good about myself. So I would have to put S tier on that one for sure. So next we have Shigekichi of the Red Gourd. He's a reskin of the Drunkards, so I think I'll start with them first. So the Drunkards, it's a bigger enemy that once you get used to using the Mist Raven prosthetic, you can beat him pretty easily. Basically it just gives you a free dodge where you can get behind him and just wail on him a few times. I would say the Drunkards weren't too difficult. Where I would put them on the tier list, I would have to say Drunkards were a little bit more difficult than Orin, but a little bit easier than the Long Shadow, Long Swordsman, I feel like. I feel like that's a good answer. So next we'll do the Red Gourd one. This guy I fought after the other Drunkards because he comes much later in the game. He was easier in that way because you had the training to be able to beat him. I would say I had a little bit more trouble with the Ashina Elite, funny enough. Next we have the Shinobi Hunter, another easy one for me. I was able to get a stealth death blow on him. It was not too bad at all. I would say his difficulty level would probably be right after the Okami leader. Alright, so the next one we have is Snake Eyes. There were 2 different Snake Eye mini-bosses in the game. I would have to say that it had a pretty big difficulty. I wouldn't say she was easy at all. Basically had a gun and could also beat you with that gun, so not too much of a fan. I would say she's probably up there with the 7 Spears Ashina. If not, I would maybe put her in between the 2 Long Shadow Swordsman guys. I feel like that's a good answer. So next we have Chained Ogre. Now, my first playthrough, I tried to fight him so many times, and this is actually what got me to quit during my first playthrough, 2 hours into the game. So, pretty difficult for me in that sense. Once I came back to it a couple years later, which recently I did, I was able to beat him after a little bit more practice with parrying. Once I got it down, he's not too difficult now. So I would say Chained Ogre probably would be right before the Blazing Bull. It was a little bit more difficult than the Bull. Not too much though. Alright, so last we have the Shichiman Warriors. I didn't really like this mini-boss. It appears 3 times in the game. I'm not too much of a fan of reskins unless the boss is actually good. This one gave you terror damage. I'm not a fan of terror damage, only because it can kill you instantly if you get too much of it. Difficulty rating wise, I would have to put the Shichiman Warrior probably right above the Headless, I think. So now I'm going to look into my tier list, see if I can move some things around, make sure it's 100% accurate. I would probably say the second Ashina Elite was a little bit harder than the first General, so I'd bump him down a space. I also think this Ashina Elite was a little bit more difficult than the Sekiro Bull. And there we have it! We've got my tier list. A lot of these mini-bosses can be cheesed through damage, meaning they have some hidden mechanics that make it easier, whether that's through items or the prosthetic. Just to give you an example, the Blazing Bull and the Sekiro Bulls actually have less resistance to firecrackers than most of the other bosses. That's because they're beasts. So if you were to use firecrackers against beasts, perfect, that makes them a lot easier. This also goes for apparition type enemies. If you were to use Divine Confetti, it's a lot easier to kill them. That goes for the Shichiman Warrior and the Headless and a few of the main bosses as well. Once I get through all the main bosses in the game, I'm sure I'll make a tier list for y'all as well. The thing that I liked most about this game is how it was very rhythmic coming to the different mini-boss and boss battles. I haven't finished all the bosses. I'm sure once I do, I will come back and make a video for you guys as well. I really enjoyed the aesthetic of this game, the environment, so I might even go back through and talk about the different landscapes that you might experience. So yeah, this is my tier list. I feel like there's probably going to be some things to change over time. Maybe you guys have some different opinions as well. I'd definitely love to hear them. Leave a comment, leave a like. I would sincerely appreciate it. And I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.